You need people like me. You need people like me so you can point your fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Later on this month, on the 22nd, Nigeria's own Elizabeth Oshoba will be making her MVP debut. I think it's kind of fallen into the background that Elizabeth is one of many, many fighters that MVP decided to pick up unbeaten in 9 professional fights, 5 of which she won by way of knockout. And she's going to be facing America's own Melissa Odessa Parker. You may be familiar with that name, as I've had Melissa Odessa Parker here on the channel several times, talked about her several times. A formidable fighter that's getting on in age now. She's 38, sporting a professional record of 6 wins with 3 losses, 1 draw, 2 knockouts, having never been knocked out in 10 professional bouts. At least one of those losses, the loss to Sharita Metcalf, the quote-unquote loss, that was a robbery. Melissa Odessa should have got the decision in that fight, and she didn't. That fight was all the way down there at bantamweight, 118 pounds, whereas this fight is scheduled for 8 at 126. Featherweight. A better weight for a fighter 38 years old in Melissa Odessa Parker. A healthier weight, I'd say, where she can bring more to the table and not leave so much of herself in the gym, just trying to get down, trying to make weight. Oshoba versus Parker is not a bring-along fight for Elizabeth Oshoba. It's not a simple developmental fight. This is an acid test, as Melissa Odessa Parker is a well-schooled amateur and a former U.S. Marine, a crafty southpaw who can punch. I've seen her, and she's good. She's won some fights and she's lost some fights, but all of it lends itself to Melissa's experiences as a professional, which helps to round her out. Even though they have a similar number of fights, I view Melissa as being a more experienced fighter than Elizabeth Oshoba, because Melissa's fought better fighters than Elizabeth Oshoba has fought. Elizabeth was last in action earlier this year in March in what was a 6-rounder. Before that, last year, she fought once in January, then again in June. So she's been keeping a good, steady schedule of activity. You could say the same for Melissa, who also saw action this past March, and before that, she was in action in May of last year opposite the ring Micaiah Krebs, who beat her by way of a unanimous decision. So neither fighter has any ring rust they need to shake off, no cobwebs. They've both seen action in the last 12 months. If you are not familiar with Elizabeth Oshoba, I've talked about her once or twice here on the channel, a promising fighter that hails from Nigeria with very generous physical dimensions for a featherweight. She's tall and she's strong. She can punch. And I get the sense that this is a significant fight for Elizabeth Oshoba, not just because it's a step up in class, but because it's her very first fight under the MVP banner, and I don't think they landed on Melissa Parker by accident. They want to know that Elizabeth can handle herself, so they're putting her in there with somebody who's been around the block, somebody who's good. They will hold up their end of the bargain on the promotional end if Elizabeth can hold up her end as a fighter. She can fight and she can win. We've been talking about the situation between them and Ashton Silva, who they have so jettisoned. They've gone their separate ways, and, you know, I think losing to Lucas Body has something to do with that. So Elizabeth can't afford to go in there and lose to Melissa Parker in what will be her very first fight under MVP. She's got to seal the deal and get the win. MVP is signing fighters left and right, affording a lot of them an opportunity to box on a major platform, but it's not without its caveats. You have to show you're worth the effort. You have to show that you're worth the promotion you stand to get from MVP. They just signed 2024 Olympian Jahmal Harvey. Paris 2024 Olympian Jahmal Harvey has signed with Jake Paul's MVP, the promotional outfit told ESPN on Wednesday. Harvey, 22, is arguably the most accomplished American men's amateur boxer signed to the promotion as a 10-time U.S. national champion and a quarter-finalist in the 2024 Olympic Games. He joins a growing roster of prospects signed by MVP, which includes Canadian Olympian and amateur world champion Tam Tebow, 19-time U.S. national champion Sarai Brown L., Brazilian Olympian Keno Marley, 15-time U.S. national champion Nat No Love Dove, and 2-time U.S. national champion Alex Gueche.
This is serious signings. It's not charity.
We believe Jahmal Harvey can become one of the biggest faces in boxing both in and out of the ring, MVP co-founder Nikisa Badarian told ESPN. Badarian said that Harvey had been on the radar of MVP since December of 2023 because of Paul's partnership with Team USA Boxing. Jahmal was our top target following the Olympics, and when we found out he was ready to go pro, we began to focus on the deal. So Jahmal decided to go with MVP. Not
Golden Boy.
Matchroom, not Top Rank, not the PBC,
But MVP.
They are growing as a promotional outfit, establishing relationships that will structure their future and their place in the sport of boxing. That Jake Paul is in good with the amateurs at Team USA, and that gives him a direct channel to talk to those young amateurs as they're going into the pros, offer them something to go with MVP instead of somebody else. Fighting out of Oxon Hill, Maryland, Harvey will make his pro debut on August 22nd in a 6-round super featherweight bout against Peru's Marcelo Del Aguila at Most Valuable Prospects 14 at the Caribe Royale Resort in Orlando, Florida. When I went to Colorado Springs with Team USA ahead of the Paris Olympics, I was able to meet Jahmal and the rest of the team while training with them and providing them with mental strength techniques, said Jake Paul. Even among the best amateur talents in the United States, Jahmal immediately stood out to me as the full package, with potential to become a future world champion and massive star with MVP. It is an honor to now welcome him to the team, and I can't wait to see him put the super featherweight division on notice starting Friday, August 22nd. In 2021, Harvey became the first American gold medalist at the IBA World Boxing Championships since Demetrius Andrade accomplished the feat back in 2007. He advanced to the quarterfinals as a featherweight, but did not medal after losing to Kyrgyzstan's Munerbek Seatbek Ulu. According to BoxRec, Harvey ended his amateur career with a record of 61-8. I'm signing with MVP because I believe it's the best fit for me to become MVP of the sport, said Harvey in a statement. Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian are changing the game and putting athletes on the biggest stages, and I am excited to be part of it.
Jahmal Hill is just one part of the story that we're about to discuss. And that show where he's set to make his professional debut on the 22nd of this month, that is one of 2 shows that MVP is doing that weekend. They're doing one on the 22nd and another on the 23rd.
Oftentimes when we talk about MVP, it's in regards to their efforts for women's boxing and how they are helping to advance the sport, that they have fast become the authority on the women's game, but they're not stopping there. And I stressed the importance.
Don't separate them and don't segregate them. A big part of the reason that Matchroom was so successful in their effort to advance the sport of women's boxing was because they didn't separate the girls from the guys. They would mix in the girls with the guys' shows,
which led to the normalcy you now see here today, that it's not uncommon to see 2 or 3 girls boxing on an undercard of a big-time boxing match.
And in order to do that effectively, you can't just beef up your stable of women, you also have to beef up your stable of men. Enter Jahmal Harvey, a standout U.S. Olympian that MVP is now promoting.
It's not getting enough attention that a decorated amateur like Jahmal Harvey, a young one with a promising future, he didn't go to Matchroom. He didn't go to Top Rank. He didn't go to Golden Boy. He went to MVP.
Things are changing.
You know that it's normally Top Rank that gets access to all of those blue chip prospects, those standout amateurs going into the pros. This is one that got away at a time where Top Rank is vulnerable, and so is the PBC, Two of the bigger, more established promotional outfits in the American boxing scene, both of which are going through their own set of hard times. Top Rank is still between broadcasters right now, and we don't know when they're going to come back. The PBC, they're operating at a much reduced capacity than they used to. They're not doing anywhere near as many shows, and many of their fighters are being outsourced.
Times are tough.
With neither of those two promotional outfits doing as many shows as they used to, a reported blackout in the month of August and the month of September,
Times are tough.
there is a void left to fill. Enter MVP, who in many ways are still very new to the game, very new to the sport of boxing, but there's an area of opportunity there that if there's a void left behind, a void left to fill by Top Rank and PBC, MVP can try to fill it.
They're beefing up their stable. They're beefing up their stable of men, their stable of women.
They're doing their own shows. They're doing their own shows more frequently. It's not exclusive to just what Jake Paul is doing or what Amanda Serrano is doing. Their most valuable prospect series.
I've caught a couple of their shows, and they're all right.
If the situation remains dire for the PBC or dire for Top Rank, you know, fighters are going to need some place to go. They can't wait around for those outfits to sort themselves out forever. And if MVP's got fight dates and they've got a broadcast deal,
They'll just go over there. The fighters are going to go wherever the opportunities are. Irrespective of the banner, fighters are going to go to whoever's got the fight dates.
so what we could be looking at is an early shift in the axis of power. Some outfits aren't what they used to be, and some new ones are gaining momentum.
Think about the situation between Ryan Garcia and his promoter Golden Boy Promotions and how he only has one fight left on his existing Golden Boy Promotions deal.
If he were to finish out that deal, where would he go after that? I don't see him going to Top Rank, or Matchroom, or PBC. I don't think Turkey wants to invite him back to fight on his shows. Enter MVP. They've got that social media influencer, social media angle that's right up Ryan's alley. That if Ryan can break away from Golden Boy, I could see him going to MVP.
I mean, I can see a situation where if things stay dry for the established game in town, some fighters might start to pop up over there.
Which would further legitimize MVP as a promotional outfit, a major one in the sport of boxing, a well-to-do promotional outfit that via their reputation can draw talent to them. So this is definitely something that you want to keep an eye on. It's more than just signing Jahmal Harvey or signing a bunch of girls.
You know that everybody's more focused on TKO and what TKO is going to do. Under their nose, MVP is growing.
Right under their nose, to where, who knows, a year from now, 2 years from now, they may be a major player. Now, as it pertains to Jake Paul, the co-founder of MVP, and his potential fight with Anthony Joshua, it would seem that Anthony has to choose between the circus fight with Jake and a gold medalist showdown with fellow Olympian Tony Yoka. Speculation has increased that Anthony Joshua's return to the ring could take place in December against the Frenchman Tony Yoka. Joshua's not boxed since he was emphatically stopped in 5 rounds by Daniel Dubois at London's Wembley Stadium in September of 2024, sparking Joshua's longest spell of inactivity since he claimed the gold at the 2012 London Olympic Games. Reports persist that Joshua and Jake Paul could still fight in what would be a commercial juggernaut. But Joshua has previously been outspoken about influencer boxing, and his trainer Ben Davison also recently told Boxing Scene he was not a fan of the matchup. Yoka, 33, has been winning on small stages since suffering 3 losses. He is trained by Don Charles now, who of course trained Dubois to defeat Anthony Joshua, and the Frenchman recently signed a promotional agreement with Queensberry Promotions, increasing the possibility of a Joshua-Yoka showdown. Given that Matchroom's Joshua and Frank Warren's Yoka share a broadcast partner in DAZN, Yoka, incidentally, won the Olympic super heavyweight gold 4 years after Anthony at the Rio Olympics.
Both Tony and his then-girlfriend, now mother of his child, Estelle Mosley,
The Olympic power couple have since parted ways, and being honest, that crop of Olympians, neither have found the same success and the same accolades in the paid ranks as they did in the amateurs, Tony especially.
I mean, out of the amateurs into the pros, people thought that Tony Yoka was going to be the French version of Anthony Joshua, that he would go on to have the same success that Anthony had, but that hasn't happened. Anthony Joshua, 28-4 with 25 knockouts, went on to hold the WBA, WBO, and IBF titles, but Yoka has yet to strike gold in the pros. However, this week he told French publication L'Equipe that a Joshua bout was a big possibility. The 35-year-old former champion, for his part, encountered French promoter Johan Zowie in southern Cyprus, where Zowie was on vacation with his wife and kids in Limassol.
Limassol, that sounds like an ED medication. And who do I run into this morning at the pool? He told L'Equipe, Joshua. He's also on vacation with his family, with his younger brother and his nieces and nephews. I chatted with him for a few minutes. He's humble and kind. Yoka is 14-3 with 11 knockouts. In 2022 and 2023, he lost a trio of decisions to Martin Bacoli, Carlos Takam, and Riyad Merhi. But he's won 3 bouts since then, including a 10-round decision over the 16-0 Arslan Yaliev in May. He told me that his next opponent would certainly be French. Zowie added, he told me that he had the option of facing the American YouTuber, Jake Paul, but that 90% of the time, it would be Yoka. I asked him his prediction. He told me there was no easy fight. So if Anthony were to forego a Jake Paul circus fight for a Tony Yoka Olympic gold medalist showdown, you know how Jake is going to frame it. Jake is going to pretend that he's being avoided, the guy who lost to Tommy Fury. I mean, I don't mind Jake Paul. I don't mind what he's doing. I don't have an axe to grind with him.
But he is childish. When Canelo Alvarez decided to forego a fight with him, that's how he chose to frame that, as if Canelo has anything to worry about in a Jake Paul.
So if Anthony Joshua were to go a more serious route, a more professional route, and forego a circus fight with Jake, that's what he's going to say. He's going to say, Anthony's avoiding me.
Sure, Jake.
It's a part of who he is. It's a part of what he does. Saying these silly things and being that annoying character has lended itself to his profile in the sport of boxing. Now, as far as an Anthony Joshua versus Tony Yoka fight, well, Tony Yoka may have had a decorated amateur career, but as a pro,
he's fragile. He can't hold a shot. You often hear people talk about Anthony Joshua's chin. Well, Tony Yoka's even chinnier.
From what I've seen, he was with veteran trainer Virgil Hunter for a number of years. Virgil's claim to fame was his work with Andre Ward. Needless to say, he wasn't able to do for Tony what he did for Andre. So now Tony is with veteran trainer Don Charles, who seems to have developed a penchant for rehabilitating broken fighters like Daniel Dubois, their work together, and now Tony.
So maybe Don can do for Tony some of what he did for Daniel. Toughen him up. Toughen up, Frenchie.
He's on a 3-fight winning streak, but given how fragile he's been whenever they stepped him up, I don't trust him to beat Anthony. Even now that Anthony is coming off a violent knockout loss, I'd still favor Anthony to win that fight, if they make it.
Tony's got some strengths, don't get me wrong, but I don't think he punches like Daniel.
He's athletic and he's got some quickness, but he's not as explosive as Daniel, not as heavy-handed. That'd be a good rebound fight for Anthony. I don't mind it. Anthony Joshua versus Tony Yoka, battle of the Olympic gold medalists. I could go for that in December.